everyone, and welcome to 121 in Flux. I am Pierre, and joining me, as always, is Connor.
Yes, I'm here. We're back.
Yes, we're here to talk about a movie film. This is a movie podcast, and we'll start spoiler-free as we always do, but we're going to talk about Brian De Palma's film Sisters, one of his earlier films from 1972. It stars Margot Kidder in one of the lead roles, which is pretty notable. This is what I had on my Blu-ray shelf for the last 5 years, something like that.
We've all got some of those.
Yeah, I did actually watch this on stream with some people in chat, so there was some fun to be had there. But this was interesting enough. I said to Connor, you should watch it, and we should give it some conversation, because we've done a few Brian De Palma movies. We've already covered Body Double, Dress to Kill, and maybe one other one that
Did we do Blowout?
No, we didn't do Blowout.
Okay, we've spoken about that one then, but maybe that wasn't a review.
Yeah, we've both seen it, but we haven't reviewed that. So Sisters is, like a lot of his earlier films, there's a lot of Hitchcock in here. De Palma's definitely challenged his Hitchcock love, but it does go in some wild places. But like I said, we'll start spoiler free. We'll give you some warning before we go into spoilers. So the premise of this is that, how do I put this? Because honestly, one of the weirdest things about the start of this movie is that it starts off with this weird game show about catching peeping toms, or will the guy be a gentleman or will he be a peeping tom? There's a weird thing, but they're actually both kind of actors in the scene, or at least one of them is. It's a whole thing. But anyway, so they meet on this game show, and that's Margot Kidder's character Danielle, and what was the other guy's name? I just said right before we started, Philip. So they meet, and they kind of head off. It's like, hey, do you want to go get some dinner? And they go have some dinner, and she's got this French accent, which honestly probably the weakest part of the movie is her French accent.
It's pretty. It's not like it's terrible. It's not amazing. It's not terrible. It's more just doesn't sound right coming out of her. Yeah,
maybe it's just we know what she sounds like because it's Margot Kidder, but it felt weird the entire time. They kind of hit it off at the restaurant. There's some chemistry, and they end up getting back to her place, and they have a passionate night. But in the morning, he is brutally murdered. Kind of pulls a. This isn't actually a Hitchcock movie I'd say it pulls the most from, but it's a little bit psycho in the sense that it spends the first 30 minutes kind of treating these two like the main characters, and it's like, no. This neighbour who maybe witnesses part of the murder is actually the main character. And we go from there.
Yeah, I definitely say there are some definite parallels with Psycho.
Yeah. There's definitely more from Rear Window though. There's a lot of Rear Window. There's one particular section where it goes full on Rear Window.
Yeah, there are some other elements that I think that are very Psycho-esque. We'll get to those later. But I feel like it is kind of taking those two through a very early De Palma lens. It is very proto De Palma still.
Yeah, because the Rear Window stuff, there's... It's almost like if Rear Window, instead of following James Stewart for the first chunk, you actually followed the guy who seems to murder his wife for the first half hour, and then switched to Jimmy Stewart. That's kind of what it'd be doing. But there is kind of a sort of weird element as well, which I won't spoil. And then of course the last where it goes for the last 30 minutes is pretty different than any of those movies.
It's out there.
Yeah, it goes kind of wild. So that is the general kind of premise. So a lot of the actual plot from that point on, of course, is the neighbour trying to prove that she saw something, but she's a journalist who the police don't like because she's written a bunch of articles about police corruption, and she's kind of ousted them for things here or there. So the police do not like her, so they don't really take her seriously. I mean, they show up, they kind of do their job, but they're not exactly that thorough.
They do the bare minimum.
Yeah. So she kind of gets a PI, and she tries to okay, let's try and prove that something happened because I know what I saw. And that kind of becomes the movie. So, but yeah, like I say, it's a good half hour maybe before we get to that point where there's a lot of the relationship between Danielle and Philip, sort of developing their chemistry, hitting it off, and do you know what I'll say about that? I'll say that I really kind of liked him because I actually didn't know he was going to die, because I went into this really cold.
Yeah, me too.
Even though it's the premise of the movie. So by the time he actually does get murdered, I was like, oh, I kind of liked him. They made me like him by the time he died.
Yeah, no, they do a good job with that. And we're saying, it's half an hour of this. That's a lot when it's only an hour and a half movie.
Yeah, it's a 90-minute movie. It's a good chunk of the runtime. But he does a lot of nice things for her. She's kind of seems to have this past, and this seemingly ex-husband kind of stalking her a little bit. That's a weird way of phrasing it, but he's stalking them, and he's kind of outside the building at one point, and all the rest of it. So it sets up some sort of like potential red herrings. It focuses on some details that, okay, this is going to be important later. These little details, kind of like the night of. There's a little bit of that kind of.
There is, and you have the morning after their night. He goes into the bathroom to clean up, and you hear her out in the other room arguing with her sister, and you hear, oh, it's their birthday today. So all these little things that are like become really important later on for the plot.
Yeah. Yes, there's a sister, which would make sense because the movie is called Sisters.
Clues in the name, isn't it?
Yeah, that is the gist of the movie. Connor, how did you feel about Sisters overall?
Yeah, I like it quite a bit. Not my favorite De Palma movie. I think it's clear it's an earlier, unrefined piece of work, but a lot of the hallmarks are there. He's starting to experiment with some of these things that I consider, kind of his stuff. Like, there's a vertical split screen section, which okay, really feels like, okay, this is what I can kind of see coming from De Palma later.
Yeah, that was very De Palma. I really like that sequence actually because it basically shows two sides of things that are happening simultaneously. Which obviously that sounds obvious, but what I mean is that it's like there's kind of a race against the clock for the one side of the frame to finish what they're doing before the other people on the other side of the frame arrive at the door. So there's like a it kind of treats the we have to quickly clean something up before the police get to the door. But in real time, we see it playing out on both sides. So that's really suspenseful. I liked it quite a bit as well. I agree it's kind of the early unrefined De Palma, but as I was watching it, like, it feels so confident in its filmmaking though. Like,
absolutely.
All the stuff with the crime scene, all the stuff with the witnessing, and then because obviously it wouldn't be the last time he would go to obviously a lot of Hitchcock or even Rear Window. Like, I mean, Body Double has some Rear Window in it. There's a lot of that's about watching someone from a distance. It's very much something that he returns to, and arguably in a way maybe this was almost the prototype for what Body Double would ultimately become.
I can see that he kind of took this idea. He knew what he kind of wanted to do, and this is a pretty good attempt, but it's not quite there. And then he kind of improved upon it for Body Double, and Body Double is better than this movie. Don't get me wrong, but this is still pretty good. Again,
the music was really good in this. I mean, I didn't like it as much as Body Double's score, but like it had really distinctive music throughout. No, that stuff was good. The direction is kind of the thing, key, front and center. The direction's what really makes it sing. It's the movement of the camera. It's the way it sits on things. The performances are relatively solid. I liked Grace, who's our kind of neighbor journalist who ends up investigating everything. Very headstrong. Very much wants to prove what she's seen.
Very, very capable.
Margot Kidder is good in the role, but it's very different. Like Margot Kidder, I'm used to Margot Kidder being that. But I'm pretty sure someone in chat cracked a joke about Margot Kidder like looking at the other role, the journalist, and going, I fancy being a journalist in a movie someday, leading to Lois Lane some years later. But I really like having Margot Kidder be this kind of delirious and helpless, seemingly.
It's
the movie is different
unusual, for her, and it's not that she does it badly. I think it's just we're so used to seeing her in these other roles.
Because even just a couple of years later, she's in Black Christmas. Even in that, I mean, obviously, mild spoiler, she still gets killed in that movie, but she's definitely still the confident one who's ready to mouth off against anyone who challenges her. It's very much the type of character that she would typically play. But yeah, I think that the movie works really well. And I mean, sure, don't get me wrong. I think the first half of it, I'd say, is more to my taste than the second half, where it gets kind of a bit more crazy with the reveals. There is a point in the back half where I thought, are they about to pull some insane twist that makes no sense? And I almost thought they were for a second, and then sort of I sort of dialed back and went, no, I get what he's doing. I get what he's doing here. It's not that.
I think I know exactly what you were thinking it might have been.
I was like, no, it can be. There's no way it can be. But they're showing me this, and I'm like, this,
honestly, I'm not 100% sure how to interpret some of that stuff that happens towards the end. I'm not sure De Palma knew exactly how to interpret it. I think he just went, it'll be fine. I'll film it with style.
So also the ex-husband character is delightfully kind of slimy. He's got kind of a presence to him that's different.
The way he evolves over the course of the movie as well is really unique and interesting.
Yeah, because at first he's just a sort of jealous ex-husband stalker, but as we find out more about him, he's also got this really specific look. He's got this tiny little mustache. He's also kind of French as well, I think. So,
yeah,
and he's got the. There's something about this. He's got a sleazy kind of pervert look to him. He's got the raincoat.
He does. He really dresses the part.
Yeah, so it's a whole thing. There's one point actually because the body's hidden in the couch, right? And I said this out loud when I was watching the movie, that it's a fold out couch because that's where they were sleeping the night before. It's a fold out couch, and if you had told me they hid the body in the fold out couch, I'd have said that's impossible. There's no way you're getting that 6 foot guy in a fold out couch. But they showed it to me. They showed me it folding up with him there, and they managed to close it. And I was like, oh, okay. I can't argue with that. They showed me it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
I can't argue with it.
It seems like it shouldn't work, and that's kind of an interesting point as well, that the police kind of dismiss it.
Yeah. I wonder...
you don't get a man in that.
I wonder if this idea came about because De Palma or someone like on the crew actually started testing, like, where can is it possible? And like, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a good chance they probably built a custom couch to make it sure it worked. That's entirely lately.
Yeah.
But
I don't know, it feels a bit lower budget than that, doesn't it?
It does feel a bit lower budget than that. It feels like a down and dirty movie.
I don't mean that in a bad way. I just, it doesn't feel like the flashing a lot of cash around.
No, it feels like a movie that's sort of set in its grimy world.
Yeah. I suspect this was the inspiration for Danny DeVito in the couch in Always Sunny. This was proof it can be done.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. Because this is the Palma movie that I don't hear people talk about. I basically just discovered this because Arrow put it out on Blu-ray. It was like, oh, it's a De Palma film from the 70s. Yeah, sure, I'll get it. But like, you know, I don't really hear people talk about this one in particular.
I mean, I would have seen the name of it at some point when I've looked at his IMDb page, I'm sure, at some point in the past. But I would never have been able to tell you what it was, that it really existed. Pete just went, hey, it's streaming, go check it out so we can do a review. And I was like, fine.
Yeah, I think we'll get the spoiler warning there then, so we can talk about some of the where the movie goes. So, full spoilers from this point on. Before we start, though, I'll thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you to David Short, Alison M. Fordyce, Cindy Palacios, and Tyler Hess. Thank you to you guys. That means they're patrons at the $20 tier or above, but you can be a patron for as little as $1 per month and keep all the content coming and support everything we do. And for your $1 you get bonus episodes of a couple of the movie podcasts, and at the $5 tier you get early access to a bunch of stuff, including these movie reviews, and you get voting rights on certain things, and so on and so on. So go and have a look, see if you're interested in any of that stuff. Yeah, so spoilers then. The first time you hear her arguing with a sister and it's through the door, like, I immediately go, okay, she's talking to herself. There's no one really there. Like that's the kind of the twist they're setting me up for here. And at this point, they've already revealed that she has a scar from being separated from her conjoined twin. Right? That's kind of the idea. And we see her like try to take her pills, but she drops them down the sink, so she's not actually taking her medication. And obviously, what's revealed throughout the course of the film is that she goes crazy and turns into Dominique, her sister, quote unquote. And that's actually who murders Philip, is that she kills him and she turns into Dominique. So we have this kind of split personality thing going as well, which I guess is a little psycho as well, now that we're thinking about it. That's what I was getting at, yeah. It's a little Mrs. Bates in that sense. And the husband, that's the little twist, I suppose, is that he's not actually her husband. It's like he's her doctor who's monitoring the situation. Yeah, and I think the one that performed the operation to separate them, right? Yeah, he's obviously he knows that she can snap, and that's why he's watching. Now that doesn't necessarily mean he's a good character. He's very slimy and devious anyway, but that's why he's clearly watching with great, very closely. He's concerned. There's a we say, oh, he's slimy, and it changes from being this jealous ex-husband into being this overwhelming medical curiosity. That just, I want to see how this plays out at any cost. Honestly, by the time we get to the end, it's pretty much mad scientist levels. Yeah. He helps clean up, and this is where we get the great split screen where the neighbor, Grace, has phoned the police, and we see her waiting for the police to arrive. We go split screen, and we see on the left. I don't know who was left or right. I can't remember which was which, but it doesn't matter. I think the inside the apartment was on the left, if I recall. It doesn't really matter, but on the left we have them like scrubbing the blood and like putting the body in the couch and cleaning the apartment, and then on the right we have her, and she's kind of like bickering with the police. The police are like, oh, you call us out, oh, we're so happy you wrote that article about corruption, blah blah blah, like, and they're being like proper cheeky, but not in a way that it feels unnatural that they're stalling to like make this last long enough. It feels like a natural forget where because she even herself, Grace, is constantly, no, let's move now before they can clean things up, and the police are like, hold on a minute, we're going to take our time here.
We're gonna do this properly.
Yeah, like it's really well done. I really love this section of the movie. The kill scene itself is really good, and even something as simple as, because I said that you really like Philip by the time that he dies. Like, not only is it because they have chemistry and whatever, but he goes out of his way. She asks him to go pick up a prescription, right? Or it's not even a prescription. He just says, "Go and get me my pills or whatever." Presumably, it's just something you can buy at the pharmacy. He goes to get that, and he decides on his way, since he's found out it's her birthday, her and her sister's birthday, that he gets a cake for her, but not even just for her. He says, "No, put both names on it," because there's a whole scene where he goes to the baker's, and she's like, "Oh, the cake decorator's out," and I thought, cake decorator? It's a fancy bakery. He's got a specific employee who's just there for the cake decorating, which I guess does exist. Which is why I guess what point I'm making there is that it's not just a regular bakery; it's more of a specialized.
Yeah, if you
place.
go to a place that does cakes, properly just for cakes, I'd buy. They have someone who does the decorating.
Yeah, so I'm thinking it's more of a specific cake place than a general bakery, I suppose, is my point.
Yeah.
So the idea that the actual designer, the one who decorates the cakes, is kind of funny to me. So I think it was Elaine and Louise or whoever. The reason why I remember this is because basically there was a running joke when I was watching this on stream where the chat kept saying, "Oh, just you watch, Louise is going to be the hero of this movie," and it was a whole thing. But so they'd be upset if I didn't mention the cake shop. But the important part of it though is that it makes you like him a bit, because he goes out of his way to not only just get a cake for her birthday. He's like, no, put her sister's name on there too. Make it for both of them.
He's making an effort.
It's a really sweet gesture, and he brings the cake back. They finally get to the apartment, right? The cops are there, and Grace is told to not do anything because she's not a police officer, but she keeps trying to investigate, and she's trying to look in places, and she finds the cake, and the cake says, the two names on it, and at this point, Daniel's, "No, I'm here alone. There's no one else here." Blah 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 blah. And she finds this cake, and she's like, "This is proof. This is proof he was here." And it's he went and bought this cake. And she runs out and she trips and drops the cake, so the writing's all destroyed at the top.
It's a little conveniently frustrating.
Yes.
But at the same time, she is rushing around. She's so excited. Look, I've got this. That I buy. Just a little stumble and it's gone. It's just on the line of believable enough, but it is tight.
But she goes, that's obviously what leads her to the bakery to interview them, with her mother, no less. It sets up that her mother's like, so when are you going to get married and have kids and stop with this stupid little career that you're having? Her mother's very old-fashioned.
One of the weakest elements of the movie, in that it doesn't really serve any great purpose.
I think it's just to give her a bit more character, but it doesn't really ultimately matter that much.
It doesn't need it, does it?
Admittedly, it's also a really small, it's like 2 scenes.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's like a huge time waste. It's just, I did notice. I'm like, why are we doing this?
Yeah, because the big thing is she gets the PI who's going to help her, and they make an excuse to get into the building, and for him to get into the building though, and like have a look around and see if where the body is, and they actually clock that it's probably in the couch, and he actually pursues this truck. Well, wherever this truck is going, this moving truck, someone's going to be in the other end to get the couch, right? And it becomes this thing where we cut to him every so often, like following this truck, and he's in his van, and actually the ending of because the end of the movie ultimately, we'll get to why in a second, but basically the murder's been covered up successfully, despite the fact that the bad guy's been got. If that makes sense, we'll get to that in a minute, like how all that happens. But we have the final kind of hopeful moment in the movie is that this PI is actually still on the case and is going to prove there was a murder. And prove that something happened, because it ends with him just like, because it sets up the first time we see him, he's like pretending to be like the super or something like that for the building, or he's a workman, and at the end of the movie we see the couch being delivered, and the camera just pulls back slowly, and you see like just the feel of like a electrician or the phone guy or whatever up in the pole with the cables, and as soon as I saw it, feels like, oh, it's him, he's undercover, he's watching the couch, he's there.
Yeah, it's really interesting to kind of do this. I think in most movies this would be followed up on and resolved within the movie.
I don't think it needs it though. I think.
No, I agree.
Yeah, they all know something's happened, and of course, Grace has been brainwashed to basically believe she never saw anything. So the police, even though they now believe her, they can't get her to tell them anything because she's like, "No, there was no murder. I don't know what you're talking about." But this little final scene's like, "No, don't worry. they're going to like solve it. They're going to find it. The
Yeah,
breadcrumbs are there.
That's all that you need, right? Is
Yeah.
that hey, no, it's fine. They've got this. It's going to get uncovered. But I think in a lesser movie, it is just a case of, well, we'll go through the motions of following this guy, finishing it off, and it would probably cut back to more. It probably extends the movie by about half an hour, to be quite honest with you.
Probably, but I actually kind of like just having this moment because it's kind of nice reveal of him watching it. It's like, okay, it's fine. He's there. Like,
Yeah,
it's a hurrah moment at the end. But of course, like, there's a lot of like looking up who this is, finding out she was conjoined twins, finding out the doctor was the supposed ex-husband was the guy who separated them. The twin died, Dominique died, and now Danielle has a mental condition where she kind of like becomes Dominique when she's not had her medication and she gets upset. Or there's a whole like gaslighting element to this that I thought was really interesting, like this kind of like theme of gaslighting, especially towards the end where when Grace follows him back to the hospital where he works, this kind of home for people, which was set up actually. That was one of the few things that the mother sets up. Grace's mother says, "Oh, you've seen in the newspaper. There's a hospital now where they just let the crazies roam around free." And she ends up there, and the doctor says that she's a new arrival, so the people who work there assume she's like someone who should be detained and someone who should be treated like she's crazy. And he gets her all tied up, and she's really quite helpless. And he decides to start brainwashing her, and we find out that he's been brainwashing Danielle forever. This has been a thing, and he brainwashes her, and we get this insane sequence, where at first glance it appears like it's trying to like show that Grace has actually been Dominique the whole time, and she's the sister, and we see her conjoined to Margot Kidder in this weird flashback. What it actually is, though, it's more like Grace is actually just experiencing the flashback, and she's just sort of like being inserted into that role in the flashback.
Somehow. Don't think about how or why too hard.
The brainwashing.
I mean, it's shot on a very basic level, yeah, but it doesn't really explain a lot of the specifics.
It doesn't, but it gives you this idea that they were exploited for being different. The doctor is this evil guy who does this.
It's a very unique and interesting way of doing the exposition of this twist.
Yeah, and he brainwashes, says you never saw anything, there was no murder, and tries to cover it up because we basically find out it's really his fault. It's his fault that all this happened. It's like Danielle's kind of innocent in the sense that she's a victim of his crazy shenanigans.
Yeah, she's guilty in the sense that she did physically commit the crime, but she is very mentally unstable and shouldn't be out in the world at all. She should probably be in this hospital.
So he does all this, but we get this, obviously she fights back and he ends up getting stabbed. He dies, and eventually the police do show up at the end and they bring everyone in and they try to ask Grace what happened, and she's just kind of like, there was no murder. She's able to fight back and defend herself and like sort of, succeed, but the brainwashing did work. So when she's asked about the actual murder itself, she has no idea. She's just like, oh, there was no murder. I don't know what you're talking about.
Pretty interesting, isn't it? Because usually in these movies, the evil plan fails, and ultimately it kind of does because they overlook the other guy, the PI. But given that she is, for all intents and purposes, the hero here, it's interesting that it fails.
Yeah, it's interesting that she'll probably again. We know that they're eventually going to figure this out. Because they know there's a PI involved, and he's going to obviously come back and like tell everyone what he's found. But there's a real interesting element here where she has kind of like gotten through the turmoil and she succeeded and all the rest of it, but she doesn't know why she did this in the first place. That's kind of gone from her. It's a really interesting dynamic for the character. But the kills are really good. He becomes truly hateable by the end as well, which is really good. And I think Grace feels really like understandably vulnerable at the end when she's on a bed strapped down as if she's in the mental hospital, and she's saying that what's happened, there's been a murder, and she sounds like she's crazy. Like all of it works really well from that point of view, because even though she has been a strong character, even though she has been very, very versatile and very resourceful in what she does, everything happening here, this would make anyone be vulnerable. Ultimately, someone's going to come looking for her, and maybe then he'll have to explain why she's there. But that's kind of the point, though, is that he's not planning on keeping her. He just wants to brainwash her enough so that she'll go away, go home, and never.
And pretend nothing ever happened. Well,
Yeah,
not pretend, but forget anything ever happened.
yeah. So he's really doing a good job of actually trying to cover up the crime. He sent the couch away, and if it wasn't for the fact that the PI was en route, following that, like he would actually maybe get away with this.
Yeah, I agree. And if you didn't have that PI thread, there could have been a potentially really interesting sequel of something triggering her memories and it coming back and kind of playing that route. There's a fragment of an idea there to make a sequel out of if you'd wanted to. But I think the PI route has it all covered. So
and of course there is a sleazy element. He has been brainwashing Danielle for his own, satisfaction.
Yeah, I mean this is a De Palma film after all.
Yeah, so that is in there as well. So be warned, themes of sleazy elements. That said, though, it doesn't overall come across as anywhere nearly as sleazy as some of his later films.
Oh no. I mean, like I say, there's an element of that here, but it's a forgivable sleaze element in the sense that it's coming from the villain. It's very intentionally. No, look how terrible this guy is. So it kind of gets away with it a little bit more. It makes you hate him more, so it kind of works. Whereas some of his other films are just a bit sleazier for the sake of it.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting that he's definitely the only villain by the end. Like obviously early on you think, okay, we've got this split personality thing, but no, it's the Doctor who's really the villain the whole time.
He's driving all of it, yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting dynamics there. I think it's really entertaining to watch. I think the first half's exceptional. Well, maybe exceptional's a bit strong, but the first half is really, really great, and then the second half is a solid follow-up with some really interesting, quirky ideas.
Yeah, I agree. I would describe the split screen section as exceptional.
Yeah, no, I love that scene. But I liked everything up until that point. I thought it did a good job of making me like the characters. I thought everything, the pacing, the building, because you would think at 90 minutes that maybe some of the stuff would feel rushed. I think it actually spends as much time as it wants to in that first chunk. And it's really just a testament to how simple the movie is, even though it sounds like it's really complicated with all this twisting and turning of the Siamese twins and their backstory and the brainwashing and all that. It actually is a movie made up of really simple sections, and the first section is very much just these two characters having a date, going home, the morning after, and all of that has enough time to breathe and do everything at once. And that's
like I say, it's a good third of the movie overall, which and it is taking its time because that is a pretty long amount of time for this movie to just kind of take things really slow and simple, and it kind of everything it does after that is earned because it took the time in that first section.
Yeah. So that is Sisters, Brian De Palma's early film. Connor, what would you rate the movie?
I'm going to give it a really strong 7.5. I think it doesn't quite get the 8 because of some of the elements in the second half. Just don't quite tie together as neatly as I would like. Kind of gets a bit out there. But some really strong filmmaking and a great first half.
Yeah, I'm going to give it the 8. I think it's a bit lesser to the other early De Palma films. And by early, I just mean 70s and 80s.
Good De Palma is what you meant.
Good De Palma, yes. I'll give it the 8 though, because I'm watching this and it's great discovering movies like this where I'm like, man, movies don't get made like this anymore. And just in that first even 10 minutes, I'm just watching it and there's just entrenched in the world that he's building around me in a way that I feel like movies sometimes today are just so ADD in like how they approach things and how we can't slow down like this. We can't just let the scenes actually play out and have the characters really grow on us and really tell the story in a straightforward way. So sometimes I really do think there's an art form in slower filmmaking or storytelling is being lost.
No, I don't disagree. This is I think if it continued on the pace of that first half, it would probably be like an 8.5. But I mean, it's still like, really good overall, and I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, no, I would recommend Sisters as well. Really solid movie. So there you go. That is the film. So you can let us know what you thought of the movie if you've seen it in the comments below. You can like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. We mentioned Patreon earlier, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. So if you want to support us, you can go there and do that. Otherwise, though, check out the other movie podcasts that we have from MailFuzz TV. We have 2 dedicated genre shows. We have Streams After Midnight, the horror movie podcast, and the Atomic Cinema Experiment, the science fiction movie podcast. Go and have a look at those. Those are both consistently every week. So go and see if you're interested and have a try some of the episodes, maybe movies you're interested in. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching movies, guys. And if you can get it, it's always nice to have diplomatic immunity.